friends, the unpredictable Donald Trump has done it again. And how? December 2025 shall forever be remembered as the month America made its grand announcement to humanity. And what was that announcement? Listen, world, our back hurts. We carried you through the Cold War, the war on terror, the war on poverty, the war on drugs, and the war on common sense. Yes, common sense too. And now we are done. They have done the destructive part of the work. Yes, the 2025 National Security Strategy or NSS is essentially a doctor's certificate for Atlas, declaring him unfit for further heavy lifting. After decades of cracking under the self-imposed responsibility of supporting the world order, Washington has finally admitted it would like to lie down, apply a warm compress, and focus on stretching exercises like reshoring, sovereignty, yoga, and border security, deep breathing. Gone are the days when the United States would solemnly declare that freedom, democracy, human rights, and carbon neutrality were moral imperatives. The new script proclaims that such things are still lovable in theory but vastly inconvenient in practice, especially when tariffs can achieve the same purpose with fewer sermons. The NSS 2025 is, therefore, not just a strategy document. It is a memoir, a midlife crisis, a reluctant confession, and perhaps even a breakup letter to the world order it once passionately courted. And like all breakup letters, it insists that it is not you, it is us, while simultaneously hinting that actually it is you, dear Europe, with your silly migration policies and dependence on Russian gas. The NSS proudly outlines America's ambition to become strong, sovereign, self-sufficient, and thoroughly uninterested in other people's business unless it is profitable or strategically irresistible. One can imagine Washington waking up one morning, looking in the mirror and gasping, "My God, I have let myself go. I need to rebuild my industrial capacity, tighten my supply chain core, and stop letting foreigners into my economic bloodstream." In this gym routine, immigration is not cardio, it is cholesterol. Migration inflows are rebranded as clogged arteries of civilization, requiring immediate intervention through border walls, patrol drones, and a national diet free of humanitarian impulses. The NSS avoids saying this explicitly, but one can sense the subtext. And what is that subtext? We are not racist. We are just allergic to demographic uncertainty.
We're not racist, we're just allergic to demographic uncertainty.
Of course, strength includes military might, the sort of might that reminds the world that while America may no longer wish to be Atlas, it fully intends to continue owning Atlas-branded weapon systems. The strategy promises the most advanced missiles, space capabilities, cyber arsenals, quantum networks, hypersonic toys, and nuclear deterrents that would make even Zeus consider early retirement. Self-reliance completes the fitness triad. America will now produce its own semiconductors, refine its own rare earths, pump its own oil, mine its own coal, and build its own backup supply chains in case China sneezes in the general direction of a microchip. Renewable energy is gently escorted to the waiting room while oil, gas, and coal are called back into the CEO's office for a performance review that ends with quote unquote, "Congratulations, you are promoted again." If the old American order was a sentimental sitcom about global cooperation, the NSS 2025 rewrites foreign policy as a no-nonsense business school case study. In this new arrangement, the United States of America sees itself not as leader of the free world, but as CEO of America Incorporated, and alliances are treated less like marriages and more like subscription services. Washington will now re-evaluate whether NATO, the Quad, and various bilateral commitments offer sufficient return on investment. A partner unwilling to pay 2% of its GDP on defense is no longer an ally. It is an expense. This managerial diplomacy is refreshingly honest. Gone is the romantic drivel about shared values, human dignity, or multilateral harmony. Instead, the world is gently informed that every diplomatic engagement comes with terms and conditions, cancellation penalties, and a renewed emphasis on reciprocity, which is diplomatic code for do what we want or we will charge you tariffs and call it national security.
Do what we want, or we will charge you tariffs and call it national security.
The NSS also embraces the close cooperation of government and private industry, a phrase that historically means, and quote unquote, lobbyists have entered the chat. Tech giants, defense contractors, biotech firms, and space innovators will now form an unofficial politburo that decides national priorities. Human rights may get a polite nod at conferences, but artificial intelligence supremacy gets the budget. It is amusing how the NSS claims to reject ideology while passionately embracing the ideology of pragmatic realism. This is similar to a person saying they are done with dating drama but immediately joining 6 dating apps because this time it is different. The NSS insists America will no longer intervene in foreign nations unless directly threatened, which sounds admirably restrained until one reads the next 2 paragraphs, and these paragraphs detail how the United States of America will actively mediate the Ukraine-Russia conflict, steer Iranian-Israel de-escalation, monitor the India-Pakistan nuclear shadow, and stabilize African flashpoints. This is not restraint, it is multitasking. America also asserts it will avoid nation building, which is technically true. Because why build when one can influence, advise, recalibrate, adjust, pressure, or gently threaten within a rules-based don't ask who made the rules order. The guiding principle is peace through overwhelming strength, a phrase best understood as peace but with more aircraft carriers. The NSS document's European chapter reads like a passive-aggressive letter written by a disappointed parent to a child who refuses to stop eating sugar. Europe is told its immigration policies are naive, its political integration misguided, its defense spending inadequate, and its strategic autonomy delusional. At the same time, Washington still expects European nations to fund Ukraine's recovery, deter Russia, modernize their armies, reduce dependency on Moscow and Beijing, resist populism unless it is the American approved variety, and maintain unity despite being constantly criticized for lacking backbone. The NSS document delicately suggests that Europe should negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, A polite way of saying, quote unquote, we tried sanctions, aid, weapons, and diplomacy, but now we would like a break. You handle it. In response, Europe appears to be nodding politely while slowly backing out of the room. The Indo-Pacific remains the stage where America projects its favorite narrative. And what is that narrative? China is rising and we are not amused. The NSS devotes enormous energy to explaining how Washington will outcompete Beijing through alliances, decoupling, tech restrictions, military presence, and rules-based assertiveness. India receives special attention as a pivotal partner, which is Washington code for we need you to annoy China, but please don't ask us to stop Pakistan from harassing you. The United States flatters India's strategic autonomy while silently wishing India would become slightly less autonomous and slightly more predictable in supporting American interests. Japan and Australia are reassured that the United States of America will stand by them provided they maintain high military readiness, consistent defense budgets, and a readiness to intercept undesirable Chinese behavior in waterways that the NSS likes to call international waters and China likes to call it ours. You can almost hear the ghost of James Monroe chuckling with delight as the NSS declares that America will once again treat its hemisphere as a neighborhood that requires strict supervision. Migration is elevated from a social challenge to an existential threat. Drug cartels are portrayed as hydra-headed monsters that can only be tamed by more surveillance, more indiscriminate interdiction, and occasionally more helpful reminders that sovereignty is flexible when America feels strongly enough about something. Canada is politely informed that while it remains a dear friend, it must not let its domestic politics interfere with America's need for secure supply chains, oil pipelines, and a general sense of northern order. Meanwhile, Latin America is invited to join the US-led energy and trade partnerships, but only after agreeing not to flirt with China, Russia, or anything that looks remotely like socialism. The Middle East section of the NSS reads like a landlord who has decided to stop renovating the property and focus only on essential repairs. Gone are the days of democracy promotion, long-term commitments, and regime change fantasies. Washington now prefers a minimalist approach, limited counter-terrorism assistance, steady energy flows, crisis management on a need to intervene basis, and the occasional drone strike when absolutely necessary. This new approach gives the impression that America is Marie Kondoing the Middle East. If a conflict does not spark joy, it is politely folded and placed on a shelf until further notice. Israel and Iran are asked to tone down their enthusiasm for mutual destruction because America is tired and needs a nap. The NSS expresses deep affection for Africa's minerals. The continent's people, politics, and developmental needs are acknowledged in the document with the same emotional investment one might give to a neighbor's cat, pleased that it exists, not overly concerned about its internal issues. Washington promises partnerships based on trade and supply chain resilience, which sounds generous until one realizes it means, quote unquote, we would like your cobalt and lithium, and we would prefer that China and Russia do not get them first. Development aid is politely trimmed. Democracy promotion is queued for later review. Security cooperation is limited unless vital minerals are threatened or China builds another infrastructure project without consulting Washington. One of the greatest joys of reading the NSS 2025 is observing its internal contradictions performing gymnastics. America wants to reduce global commitments while increasing global influence. It wants partners who are independent but obedient. It wants to protect global trade while using tariffs as weapons. It wants to avoid wars while building the sharpest set of military teeth in the human history. This is not strategy. It is ambitious multitasking. It is the foreign policy equivalent of wanting to lose weight while eating cake, get 8 hours of sleep while staying up watching geopolitical TikToks, and maintain global dominance while pretending not to want it. Naturally, scholars are alarmed by the NSS document's cultural rhetoric and fear it resembles a global TED talk delivered by a nationalist interior minister.
Because ideas worth spreading.
Economists worry that protectionism will lead to retaliation and disrupted supply chains. European leaders sigh, realizing they must now choose between raising defense budgets or listening to American lectures for another decade. Human rights activists are distraught that the United States of America has demoted moral leadership to an optional add-on. Meanwhile, realists smile with satisfaction. To them, the NSS is merely America finally getting a haircut and admitting that idealism was always just a convincing wig. The NSS 2025 may accelerate the shift toward a multipolar world where every nation looks out for itself. Climate cooperation may slow down because America has chosen oil and coal as nostalgic comfort foods. Human rights may lose the only heavyweight champion who claimed to care. Tech blocs may harden into Cold War 2.0. Arms races may resume with renewed vigor. Allies may drift into strategic autonomy or strategic confusion. The latter is more likely. Yet in all this, one must admit, the NSS is brutally honest. America is tired. America is anxious. America is self-interested. America is no longer pretending otherwise. Has America confessed its big power hypocrisy? Yes, in its way. It has peeled off the glitter, the slogans, and the speeches about world citizenship. But it has not renounced power. It has simply updated its branding. The global village utopia is retired. The fortress has been renovated. The sermon has been replaced with a service contract, and the world is politely invited to adapt. America is not stepping down from global leadership naturally. It is merely changing job description from guardian of humanity to manager of selective global influence. And the NSS 2025 is its comically elaborate cover letter.
We will make America Incorporated great again.
In case you have liked my video, please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Thank you.